Good morning. This meeting is now called to order. I'm Angie Box. I'm the chairman of the Fish and Wildlife Commission. Welcome to the second day of our April meeting here in my hometown in Jackson, Tennessee. At this time, I'd like to call on Commissioner Childress to lead us in the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance.
Lord, thank you for bringing us here today to talk about the wildlife and how to support them. Let's all work together for the betterment of everybody. Let's try to be more Christ-like in everyday life. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Childress. All right, well, I'd like to welcome everybody today. Guests and visitors here with us. Have David Brown with Tennessee's Paddle Sports. Thank you for being here. Joey Woodard, good morning. Clarence Dye, Laura Dye, thank y'all for being here again today. Thank you for your comment yesterday. That was very helpful. J.W. Worthen, Chris Hearn, Jeb Beasley, Taylor Martin, and Dan Rizzuno. Dave. Thank you for being here. I butchered that name. Okay. Thank y'all for being here today. Let's see here. And at this time, I'd like to call on Betsy to call the roll, please.
Jimmy Granberry, Tommy Woods,
Here.
Monty Ballou, Stan Butt,
Here.
Wally Childress,
Here.
Bill Cox,
Here.
Chris Devaney,
Here.
Jim Ripley, Steve Jones,
Here.
Brian McLaren,
Here.
Kent Woods, Hank Wright,
Here.
Angie Box. Madam Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you, Betsy. Commissioners, you should have all received a copy of the minutes. Are there any suggestions or revisions of minutes? We have a motion for approval.
So move.
Motion, Stan Butt. Second.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, well, signify by saying aye to approve. Okay. Are there any announcements from the commission or the public, the directors?
We'd like to thank you for hosting this last night. It was very nice.
Absolutely.
Oh, thank you. You're welcome. It was great to have everybody last night. So I appreciate y'all being there, and it was a good night.
But no, I don't have, I'll save my comments for later, please.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Director Wilson. At this point, let's see, I'd like to call on Commissioner Jones, Chairman Jones with the Budget Committee with Retention Recruitment. Is that what's on? Sorry, I have the old agenda. It's Wildlife.
You mean Wildlife Committee?
Surprise, surprise.
It's Wildlife Committee.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So yesterday we had a marathon meeting, preview of the season setting regulations that we'll be considering the first part of June. Once again, I want to just compliment staff on the amount of data they put it together, how they delivered that data, and I think it made it a very easy process. Commission, the public both gave information early on, and that information was pulled into that into those recommendations as well. And I just thought it went very well, even though it was a very long meeting. And I guess I'd like to ask Chief Benedict to come up and maybe give us just a really quick overview of what we covered yesterday.
Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do feel like, I think all of us feel like we ran a marathon yesterday, and I'm not a runner, but I can only imagine what that's like. So thank you for your attention during the marathon yesterday. We did put together a few slides for you of kind of what we heard as staff during the discussion by the commission of things you're requesting of us to look at in preparation for the June commission meeting. We wanted to share those today to be clear to request the public to comment on those and also to make sure the list is accurate with what y'all asked. So from the meeting yesterday, I'll just read through these. The agency requested the agency consider increasing the number of elk tags that we issue, allowing the inclusion of rifles for youth bear, a better description of the CWD testing process and the timing around that, an increase in the buck limit and the season length in unit CWD, the idea of a closure between the muzzleloader and gun deer seasons, allowing year-round trapping of opossum, skunk, and bobcat, an extension of the squirrel season, allowing bobcat take during archery muzzleloader and gun seasons, deer seasons. For the MAV turkey unit, use Highway 51 or something similar to that as appropriate as an eastern boundary of that MAV unit, so shrink the unit. There was a question about a Jake rule and then reducing the turkey bag limit to 2 birds during the spring season. And so I just want to put this slide up again. We showed it twice yesterday. For those of you that are watching online or on YouTube later, there's an email address here. We'd love to hear comments from the public on these, the agency recommendations from yesterday, as well as the commission items that we just shared today. We'll be taking these through May 23rd, and then that'll give us time to compile them and do some analysis and be prepared for the June 2nd meeting.
Thank you, Joe. Again, that's all this information. I know I and a lot of other commissioners got a lot of email. We get a lot of phone calls. We have a lot of interactions with outdoorsmen across the state, and all of that was incorporated. I know I got a lot of feedback that I passed on to staff, and all the commission did as well. And I really want to thank the commissioners for, helping to compile all that information to pass along to staff so that we could have this preview. Commissioner Budd, you when we were reviewing the list earlier, there was.
I talked to so many people yesterday, and I sent emails to Joe and staff, and obviously I overlooked discussion on the concern at Cheatham. Maybe if we could add that to the list about consideration of either opening the whole area for hunting or some kind of arrangement to allow the area to be hunted during opening day of gun season through Thanksgiving weekend. So if you would look into that, I'd appreciate that.
We will add it to the list. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. So we have another thing that you'd like to bring before the Wildlife Committee. I think that you've already handed it off to me, Chairman Box. So we need to look at the resolution that's before us, or the proclamation that's before us on the WMAs. Mm-hmm. I think we're ready for that. Joe, if you'd like to go ahead and proceed on Proclamation 2208.
So what we have before you, commissioners, and this should be in your packet and on your iPad, Proclamation 22-08, and the title is Repealing the Cummings Cove Wildlife Management Area and also Land Between the Lakes Wildlife Management Area. We talked about Land Between the Lakes yesterday, but we didn't Cummings Cove. So just a real brief history of Cummings Cove. It's a property in Hamilton and Marion counties just south of Prentice Cooper, so just outside of Chattanooga. It was purchased with federal funds provided by the U.S. Forest Service through their Forest Legacy Program. And that program has been established to preserve tracts of environmentally sensitive forest lands. There's been longstanding issues with OHV riders there and some damage and trespass. We worked for a long time, staff in that region did, to try to establish access for hunters. It's kind of landlocked. And so we could access the property, but hunters couldn't. So that's what led in part to the trespass issues. So because we weren't able to establish the access, we sold that property. We've purchased a lake track property using, again, those same Forest Legacy funds at Bear Hollow Mountain WMA. And for those reasons, we like to, here's Land Between the Lake. This is the same slide we showed yesterday. Just a reminder, the Forest Service is requesting that we pull that out of the WMA. That property will remain hunted just not in as a WMA. So the recommendation from the agency is that you pass Proclamation 2208, removing these two WMAs from the WMA system.
Joe, I believe that a few months ago, we had kind of an update on Cummings Cove. There were some photos of, did we review this just a few months ago? This is the same one that we reviewed had the four-wheeler trails and the big power line? Okay.
Must have been the March
So
meeting
this
where I was
is
not there.
Yeah, so this is nothing new. With that, do I have a motion? This is only from the Wildlife Committee. Do I have a motion from the Wildlife Committee to adopt Proclamation 2208, repealing Cummings Cove Wildlife Management Area and Land Between the Lakes Wildlife Management Area?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
I got a question. Joe, why do you think the Forest Service wanted to take the season settings from LBL?
They shared a few reasons with us. We didn't include that. My apologies. They want to be able to adjust their seasons at their pleasure, at their leisure, I guess, and not have to fall into the timing. They had some research projects they mentioned. They wanted to align it with Kentucky, and I don't know when Kentucky sets their seasons. So they wanted more flexibility to be able to change their seasons without involving us.
Well, how are they going, if Kentucky does what we do and proclaims the seasons, I don't understand how that, did something happen with a relationship with Tennessee that caused them to favor doing Kentucky rather than what we've done historically?
No, sir, I don't believe that's the case.
Okay.
And in fact, I guess we should have thought of this, and I don't know if anyone else knows, Patrick. They may, if they've done the same with Kentucky as far as having their agency proclaim it, they may have to do the same thing and pull out of that. I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
Patrick shaking said yes. It appears that might have happened with Kentucky as well.
Any other discussion by Wildlife Committee members? This will go as soon as, if not, can I get a vote? All those in favor of passing 2208, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. The motion passes the Wildlife Committee as presented. Madam Chairman, I'll turn it back over to you for a full commission vote.
Thank you, Chairman Jones. At this time, I'd like to ask for a motion, pass Proclamation 2208. Full commission.
Second.
Tommy, Commissioner Woods, second by Commissioner Butt. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Proclamation carried. Thank you, Joe. This time, I'd like to recognize Bill Cox with the Budget Committee.
Madam Chairman. Chris, or Ken, you want to do yours first?
Thank you, Chairman Cox. Madam Chair, if you don't mind, I'd like to take a minute and give you a relay of historical fact about Jackson, if that's okay. During the 1860s, federal troops occupied the city for most of the Civil War because of its newly constructed rail. It was integral to the distribution system and transportation system of the North getting into the South and the Deep South. Late in 1864, a band of federal raiders came in, occupied the city, and basically held the city at ransom and said, if you don't come up with the ransom, we'll burn the city to the ground. And after a while, the city and its citizens came up with the ransom, paid it to them, and they still burned the city. So most of the downtown Jackson was burned to the ground during 1864. Just thought I'd relay that to you.
I realize that. Thank you so much. Have you written a book, haven't you? A history book?
I've read a
You
book before.
You should. I can tell that, maybe one or two. You should write a book. You have unbelievable knowledge. Thank you, Ken.
Chairman Cox, I'll go through the financial report. on the first page or the first slide, reporting through the month of February. And the boating account is almost 600,000 above the projected income at this point in time during the year. And the budget expense through February is 34% of the allotment. Next slide on wildlife. The income is almost 2.9 million above the estimated projection, while the percent to total expense is 47% of the allotment. The wetlands acquisition has approximately 15.3 million in its balance. And then on the last slide, the investment is, as you see it there. And I will say, we've seen since December, all through the fluctuating economy, a reduction in valuation of the investment. March will be even greater when I report on that. Not sure what April will show. Any comments or questions?
Again, when you define the value, that's if we sold
If you sold it, would
it,
We'd
the par face value would be less than what we invested. But that has to do
Well, it
with,
wouldn't be less than we invested, but if you see the change in the middle column there where it says percent change, that's since the inception. So we're still ahead since we have invested funds in the investment.
but I'm talking about face value of the bonds. If we bought $1,000 worth right now, it's worth $9.95.
Something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, sir.
Chris?
Thank you, Chairman Cox, members of the commission. Happy to be here before you today to talk about some requested budget expansions for fiscal year 23. And just to start, I kind of want to talk, this is the first time, at least in my career, that we have asked you all to consider budget expansions for the upcoming fiscal year in April. And this has been a calculated decision from the director's office to try and make sure that we're providing staff and the agency with the maximum opportunity and amount of time with which to act upon the budgets that you approved. So by considering these expansions in April, we'll be better positioned when we get to July 1 and the new fiscal year begins. Historically, we have waited until August for you all to consider some of these things, and that really made us give up the first quarter of a fiscal year in acting on the operating budget. So there is a packet before you that I hope y'all see. I'll be speaking from this today. I don't have a brilliant slide presentation with hundreds of slides like Mr. Benedict did, but hopefully we can get through it anyway. We have some guests, some partners here, and I'd like to kind of begin by highlighting 3 programs and then asking those different partner organizations to come up and let them tell you about these particular expansions. And then I will come back up and answer any questions about the remainder. But if I'll turn you to the second page on the expansions, up near the top, you will see budget code 651601, which is called Foundation R3 Improvement. This time I'd like to ask Joey Woodard if he wants to come up and talk a little bit about what that one will do. And then we'll go to the Federation and then to Mr. West after Joe.
Thank you, Chris. Ladies and gentlemen of the commission, I appreciate the opportunity to come here today and present. I want to talk to you about R3 and tell you a little bit about the foundation's plans, what we would like to get started with R3. We'll start with why R3. I think everyone in this room is very familiar with R3 and the reasons why it's such a high priority right now. Obviously, for the foundation, it's the conservation funding crisis that's looming. Fewer and fewer hunters each year, and it looks like over the next decade, unless we do something and take drastic action, that's going to continue to accelerate. And considering that 60% of our state conservation funding comes from license sales and excise tax on ammunition and gear, that's a troubling trend. Our mission as the foundation is obviously to support the agency, and we feel that of all of the threats that the agency faces, whether it's CWD, Asian carp, all the things out there, the conservation funding crisis is probably the most significant that could change the face of the agency over time. So obviously we want to be involved in that and help lead the way to try to counteract that trend. The foundation board voted unanimously in 2019 that they wanted the focus of our mission to be R3 related. And that was about the time COVID came on the scene. So not a real good time to launch programs where you're going to be meeting in person and doing those types of things. So now that we can see past that, and it looks like the world is going to carry on post-COVID, we're ready to launch these programs. And it's not vastly different from some of the other programs that we're involved in. I mean, the foundation has been a longtime partner with the agency on youth hunts across the state, free fishing day events, but it hasn't been in a strategic and organized way. These are kind of one-off events. And what we're talking about, what I'm here to talk to you today about is a statewide comprehensive strategic plan of attack for R3 with measurable results. Our objectives, again, we want to put together a statewide comprehensive program. What I'm presenting today is just the start of that. This is where we're dipping our toe into that pond. The most important thing is to track outcomes and build on our success. I think any program into R3 needs to be an iterative process. And if you're not analyzing your results and modifying your program accordingly in real time, I don't think your program is going to be as effective. So we want to be sure that we do that. And through our R3 programs, we're going to register through the state's event database so that we can track these people as they come through our program, 1 year, 2 year, 5 years, 10 years down the road. Were we effective at actually recruiting new hunters and anglers to the fold? Our strategy, it's a focused effort. To begin with, we want to focus our efforts on college age students. And the reason for that is pretty simple. College age students are still rather open-minded. And when you're of that age, you're still trying to figure out your identity, who you're going to be, what you're going to do, what your interests are. So we feel like that's a good time to introduce people to the sport of hunting or to fishing. The other positives with that is that people of college age have transportation. They have disposable income. R3 is a whole different animal when you're trying to recruit youngsters, because you can take a 9-year-old fishing and they'll have a blast. But unless you recruit his entire family, little Johnny doesn't get to fish again until mom and dad are willing to take him. So we want to focus our efforts on these college age participants to start with. Because they do have the wherewithal to take themselves. It's gonna take a lot of volunteer instructors across the state, and that's one of the things that we've been doing over the last 2 years is kind of building our volunteer army. We have a little over 200 volunteers that we want to screen and vet to potentially use as instructors, and most importantly, we want to have a customizable curriculum. We all hunt for different reasons, and what makes hunting special to me or what draws me to hunting or drives me to hunt may not be the same for the next person. So I think any effective program really needs to evaluate the participants and what brought them to that place and time, what got them interested, so that you can tailor your curriculum to that interest so that we have a long-term lasting effect of recruiting someone to hunting or fishing. We also have to remove barriers. There are so many barriers in the way. Most of us in this room have probably hunted and fished for a long time. I have a man cave at home full of hunting gear that I've acquired over a lifetime of hunting. My wife will attest to it. You've got to move stuff out of the way to walk through there. But if you're new to this sport, if you've just been introduced to it, that's a barrier, coming up with all the gear and equipment that you need to hunt or fish. So that's one of the barriers that we want to remove. Access. It's more and more difficult to access places to hunt. Private property is hard to come by. Growing up as a kid, when my grandfather would take me hunting, I think he had permission to hunt most of the county. It's a different world now. It's not as easy to obtain permission to hunt on properties. There's a lot of hunting leases out there. So people are more and more reliant on wildlife management areas. So one of the things we want to do with our program is make sure that we have access for these individuals that are participating. And we're going to bring our assets to bear. The foundation has a couple of properties that we own that we want to use exclusively for R3. And we also have board members and friends of the foundation that have properties that we could make available for limited use during season for special hunts. Another barrier is money. When I was talking about the gear and equipment, all of that costs money. The licenses that cost money. You know, the focus of our program, we want to talk to these people and find out what are the reasons that they don't want to hunt or they haven't tried it yet. And we want to get rid of as many of those barriers as we can, money obviously being one of them. So part of our program would be using our donations and using the dollars that we have for this program to buy apprenticeship licenses, maybe buy our instructors, maybe get their license so that they're encouraged or incentivized to take part in this program. But basically removing all of those barriers so that they're out of reasons why they shouldn't try it. I think that's important. And then obviously time. Time is another barrier. Any R3 program, regardless of what age you're focusing on, you're competing with other interests. We all walk around kind of glued to our phone between social media, sports, other things. We've got to compete with that time. And you know, hunting and fishing is it's a lifelong pastime for me, but it's also a place where people can reconnect to nature. And I think focusing our program on that aspect of it would likely yield results. We want to make sure that we have effective programs. They need to be incremental. You know, I mentioned earlier about the free fishing day events that we do, kind of one-off free fishing day events. Those are great and people have a good time, but they didn't necessarily build a skill set in that one day, in that one event. So the program that we want to develop would build on that skill set incrementally so that people would go through our curriculum and build that skill set over time. I don't envision this as being a program that you enter into and 2 months later you graduate and you're a hunter. I think it's going to take a more significant effort, a more concentrated effort that lasts more than one season. And hopefully we're going to be able to form relationships with these instructors where they can continue to take these people hunting more than once, more than one season until it finally takes. It needs to be malleable. You have to analyze your data and see what's working and what's not. And to have a rigid curriculum in place that works for me may not work for the person next door. So we need to look at each individual participant to see what their interests are, how they came to us, and specifically what draws them to the outdoors to make sure that we have a program that's effective for them. And I believe that's going to be key, is making sure that our programs are malleable. We intend to leverage our relationships with industry partners. We've got great relationships with firearms manufacturers and outdoor hunting gear manufacturers. And we want to leverage those relationships because they see the wisdom in investing in R3 as well. Their entire business model depends on more people buying hunting and fishing gear. So leveraging those relationships will help us break down those barriers to entry and make our programs more successful. And again, using our existing assets that we have to make these programs more effective. For implementation, we're asking for federal funding, PR dollars of $250,000 a year for 3 years. Program requirements, we're looking at staffing, 2 to 3 regional program managers, and also additional equipment and gear to support these programs. And this R3 presentation here, what we're talking about doing is not something new, but rather an expansion and refocus of existing efforts for the foundation, whether it be SASP toys or other youth events. It's just it's bringing all of this together in a comprehensive strategic statewide plan. program timeline briefly. Fiscal year 2023, that would be program development. That's where we're going to handle program staffing, making sure that we get the right people to be successful in this endeavor, coordinating with our partners and recruiting volunteers. By 2024, that's when we're going to begin implementation in earnest, and that's where we start to review and analyze our results, and that'll be an iterative process as well. And that's also where we adapt our curriculum, based on what our data shows. If certain programs are more effective, then we want to do more of that. The ones that aren't as effective, we may want to change some things. But being fluid in that manner should make our programs more effective. And by fiscal year 2025, we're expecting increased participation and expand our impact of our programs statewide. Short presentation, but if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer any at this time.
Anybody on the committee or the commission want to have a question?
In a few minutes, we're going to hear a presentation from the Federation about their hunting and fishing academy. How as partners, are we going to work together? Is that a little different than what the R3 is proposing, or can you give us a little insight into how that's going to work in conjunction with one another?
Well, I think on the surface of it, I think it would have to be pretty similar. I mean, R3, we're all working towards the same goal. And I would want to talk with the Federation and learn more about their programs so that the programs are complementary. I think it makes sense to have complementary programs and not redundant programs, obviously. Our program, we want to focus on the specific age group first, college age individuals. And but I do think there's room for collaboration, and I think everybody's programs would be more effective in that regard.
Well, I agree. The more that we're reaching out, in different age groups and in different situations, and the better our chances of recruitment. So I just wanted to get your input into that a little.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
So this sounds pretty interesting, and like I say, it sounds very similar to another program we've seen. So these people, will you be giving them hunter ed? Will they be getting it before they come to you? How will you work that?
Yes, if you're talking about the program managers we intend to hire, absolutely. The foundation staff now, we're all trained in hunter ed. I would want any program managers we have to be trained in hunter ed instruction, as well as NRA certified.
I mean,
think that's
if you're taking these people hunting, won't they need to get, if the people coming in the program that's wanting to go out and hunt, you're looking at a new demographic of people that may not have hunter ed when they come to you.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry, I misunderstood your question. I thought you were asking about the program managers we intend to hire, but
the participants.
Absolutely, we would. That's the reason I would want our program managers to be trained so that they could be instructors, so that we could have smaller individualized classes to make sure that all of our participants are trained in hunter education, go through that curriculum.
Okay. So are you looking at hunting, fishing, shooting? What's going to be your focus?
All of the above. I think we have robust programs for all of the above. I think hunting obviously is one that we've been working the most on, but I think we would also have shooting programs and fishing as well.
Okay. And about how many contact hours you think you would have with one participant?
I think it would be significant. I don't have a number for you today, but I would think that I don't think we're going to be successful in recruiting someone to the point where they want to do this on their own without dozens of hours of contact with them. And so much of this we have to also balance with everyday life. So I think there's going to be a component of this where we use social media, YouTube, and online resources as well for some of this education.
Okay. Now, so part of this is SASP. So what percentage of the money is going toward SASP program?
I haven't thought about it in terms of percentage, But what I envision with SASP is that we would have at least two program managers that would work regionally, and both of those program managers would have responsibilities for SASP teams within their region. Our goal would be to have 3, maybe 4 regional shoots a year, and then the state shoot, host the state shoot.
Okay.
Their job would be coordinating with coaches and so forth.
Okay. Would there be money to help teams get the targets or help ranges to, if there were public ranges, to help them get the targets that they would need to shoot this program?
Yes, that's part of what I mentioned when I was talking about supplies and gear. That's one of the things that we want to do. We actually have some contacts where we might be able to get our steel targets at about half the cost of what they've been traditionally. So we hope to do that.
So roughly, what kind of money are we talking about putting into that?
It'd probably be around $50,000 annually, $30,000 to $50,000 annually.
Okay. All right. I think that's questions. Now, I guess it's strange that this R3 proposals coming through the budget committee instead of the R3 committee, but I guess we'll get through it, I guess.
I know that we allow our hunter ed to be done online. And I've had individuals express concern that we're losing that one-on-one advantage when it comes to teaching the kids. And if those that don't have engaged family, then they're just going on there just to get it. And they're not getting the emphasis that's, I think, essential to understanding about the importance of the program and why it's designed. So is that something you can address, or is there agency that might address that issue?
So
I'd be happy talking about it.
Yes, sir. I'd be happy to give you my perspective on it. I probably share some of your concerns about that. I know for me, the hunter education process was pretty formative experience. I mean, I remember, it's been a long, long time, but I remember Bernard Myers, who taught my class. I remember being there for that week every evening. So it was important for me. And I do fear that, more people taking it online, we may lose some of that interaction and some of the nuanced things that come with hunter education in person. But I also recognize that it's a brave new world out there, and not everyone learns like I learn. So I think we need to make those options available to people. When you've got families that are juggling, my family's a good example. Yesterday I had 2 ball games, a choir recital, and so families are juggling things like that. I think we need to give them the resources so that we don't preclude them from being able to hunt if the online version is available. But regardless of how they get through the hunter education or hunter safety process, part of our curriculum is going to be geared towards making sure they understand the why of hunting, and make sure they understand the importance of hunting in regards to conservation. Because at the end of the day, even if we fail to recruit someone as a hunter or angler, we want to make sure we do a couple of things. We want to make sure that they understand the importance of hunting, even if they choose not to do it. Yeah. That way we don't have an anti-hunter somewhere down the road. We want to make sure that they understand the importance of firearm safety, and that we're, at least if they come through our class, come through our curriculum, they're not going to be anti-hunting or anti-gun.
Yeah. Well, my granddaddy taught me hunter education in 1900, none of your business, but but he took it very seriously, and from the aspect of not only gun safety, but from why you hunt and the responsibility that goes along with it when you do hunt. So I think that's very important, that if they're not getting it online, then they have an opportunity to be engaged in one of the programs that are going to be presented.
Absolutely.
I just want to thank you all for what you're doing. There's a diversity is changing in Tennessee, and there's a lot of people wanting to move here. So I think these programs reaching out are really critical right now. We reach out online, we reach out in person. It's just important. So, and I haven't heard the federations, but I know their same aspects and goals. So I think those are important. Thank you.
I have a question. Joe, go back to your execution slide. Implementation. The implementation is 2024. Why are
Sorry.
we expanding this to start in 23?
Well, we got to develop the program. We got to hire people and get the program built in fiscal year 2023. We would have the program up and running by the first of the year, I would think, but it's going to take some time to hire the right folks, make sure that they have the right training and develop the resources.
You said you were going to hire people in 2024.
No, sir. I'm sorry. 2023, fiscal year 2023 will be the hiring.
All right. How are you going to judge whether you've been successful or not? What's your
So, and the short answer is, do these people, after they leave our program, do they continue to buy a license? We're the trial run. We're getting them introduced to this sport, but do they continue to buy a license? So it's going to be important that everybody that comes through our curriculum, it registers with Kitty Ray's events website so that they can be tracked. They'll get a unique identification number, and then anytime down the road that they purchase a license, we'll be able to track that data and know whether or not this program has been successful. And at the end of the day, really for R3, that's about the only way you can track that is whether or not they're actually buying licenses.
So in 3 years, when you come back, we'll be able to pull information to find out how effective you are.
Absolutely.
Anybody else have any questions? Thank you, Joe.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Joey. And certainly want to point out Commissioner McLaren is right. I mean, this is certainly, these three topics are things that really have an overlap between two committees, and glad that we're talking about them on the full commission day. But these are certainly within the purview of retention, recruitment, but also within the purview of budget, as they cost considerable amount of money. But this time I want to recognize Mike Butler, or whoever from his team, Taylor Martin, who's going to talk a little bit about the requested expansion for Hunt Fish Academy, which you find on the second page of your expansion sheet, code 652001.
Thank you, Chris. I want to say thank you for all the commissioners and all the agency staff for allowing us to be here today to talk to you about the Hunting and Fishing Academy. My name is Taylor Martin. I'm the Associate Director of the Hunting and Fishing Academy for the Wildlife Federation. I'm joined here today by my team, my two field reps. I have Chris Hearn for over here in West Tennessee, and then Jeb Beasley for East Tennessee. But it's kind of crazy how time flies. I think we all experienced that yesterday through all the hunting proclamations and stuff like that. But almost a year ago, I stood in front of the same commission over in Oak Ridge and to tell you about some of our successes and challenges that we faced with operating this program over the past 2 years. But I'm excited to be here today to talk to you about what we have coming up for the future. I think we got a very bright 2 years ahead of us. But before we really get into that, I do kind of have like a little quiz for everybody. It wouldn't really be the Academy if we didn't have a quiz. So up on the screen, you'll see I got 4 different pictures kind of representing 4 different age classes. And I wanted to have you think which one is the most important to the future of conservation in Tennessee. This isn't a trick question. It's not like none of them or all of them or anything like that. But I know in the past, a lot of us have really thought that we have to target the newest generation, really that 9 to 17 group. 9 would be the first year that they could take hunter's ed. So getting them out to the field, being safe, that's the prime time to get in front of them because they're new, they're impressionable, everything like that. But research has shown us this isn't the case. It actually showed us that bottom left hand is going to be the most important to the future of conservation. Who are these people? You might be asking. Well, they're millennials. Millennials are defined as being born between 1981 and 1996. Some people in this room may have not have known they were a millennial. Welcome to the club. There's a lot of us. And that's one of the main reasons we want to target these people as our main audience for the future years of Hunting and Fishing Academy, is because they are the largest generation in the U.S. right now. We've been working on the next iteration of the Hunting and Fishing Academy for about 8 months now. At the very beginning of that, we met with Matt Dunphy. Some of you may recognize that name. He's the Director of Special Projects for the Wildlife Management Institute. And we asked him, it's like, Matt, who do we need to go after? In your mind, who's the one demographic of people that we should target with R3 efforts? And he said, it is the millennial. Due to them being closer to the baby boomer generation, which participated in hunting and fishing more than any other generation, they're more predisposed to outdoor activities. And being between 26 and 41 years old, they have established their livelihoods. They have the disposable income and they have the time on their hands to take up something new. So I'm going to talk to you about everything that we got planned for the next 2 years. But before I do that, I do have a short video I'd like to show you all that kind of outlines what we've been doing with the Hunting and Fishing Academy and some of the ideas we have going for the future.
If you're hearing the dogs bark, go be looking where the dogs are. That rabbit's going to be in front of the dog.
People learn to hunt and fish from other people. And in a lot of cases with adults, they never had that person or people in their lives that could show them how. So now they may be in their 20s, 30s, 40s, whatever phase of life they're in, and they have this interest of learning how to hunt, but they don't exactly know how to go about it. We really want to make sure people understand what they're doing. We want to get them that hands-on experience of going out into the field and knowing how to harvest the meat and preserve it so they can get back home and cook it for a meal.
There's a lot of adults that are trying to get away from the preservative and the steroids and things that are found in domesticated animals today. And that's a big reason people are learning to hunt and fish. And it's very important for these people that know how to do it to step up and teach the next generation. And that's what Hunting and Fishing Academy is all about.
We work with a lot of good folks all across the state, and our volunteers have the, like mind with us. They're just wanting to create opportunities to get people out there.
Getting in connection with nature in general is something we're so vastly separated from today. And so these kinds of experiences really connects them back with nature. And it's pretty awesome because there's kids here, obviously, who have cell phones, but honestly, I still yet have not seen a cell phone out personally. And that's awesome. That's what we want. We want them to be able to experience this. It lets them really find who they really are.
The Hunting and Fishing Academy is an awesome program. Kids love it. They really get into it. It's very educational, especially when a child gets to harvest an animal. We teach them how to clean it. You got to learn how to do it. Venison is the best organic meat out there you can get.
For the adult or the kid or the teenager, whoever trying to get closer to their food source, trying to get closer to the land, the Hunting and Fishing Academy is the best way, especially for people who have absolutely no idea where to get in. You start right there.
So that kind of gives you a broad overview of everything the Academy does. We do a lot. Last year when I talked in front of you, I really hit on our Huntmaster and our virtual series pathways. These have been the cornerstones of the program. Huntmaster has been the oldest, and we added the virtual series in 2020. But really wanting to do something new for this target audience, the millennials. We found out in our past 3 years of operation that the Huntmaster model didn't really work for them because of busy schedules. So we've created a new pathway. These workshops are really going to focus on skill and knowledge building. We know through the outdoor recreation adoption model, the two things you have to do to get someone to start buying a license is increase their skills and knowledge. That's what we need to do. And our Huntmaster program we found out was great. They get out, they get on a hunt, they maybe even harvest something, which builds a lot of excitement. But sometimes they didn't come away with those skills and knowledge that they needed, like how to hang a deer stand or choose a location. And that's what these workshops are going to do. And we're going to continue to operate the Huntmaster and virtual series programs as well. So here we got a graph that kind of shows what we have planned for the next couple years. This first graph over here is where we're currently at. This is what we're projected to end this year at just over 3,300 participants. Most of those coming through the virtual series, but almost 700 coming through our Huntmaster program. And these next two bars are where we're going. The big takeaway from these is that over the next 2 years, we're going to be reaching over 10,000 participants through Hunting and Fishing Academy. We're going to be ramping up our adult workshops through the next 2 years, while putting an increased focus on our Huntmasters to make sure we get the right participants for the Huntmaster model. That part of the program is really geared towards recruitment, the first R and R3. So we want to make sure we're getting those brand new families for that one. But this is larger than we could have ever imagined when we started Hunting and Fishing Academy 6 years ago. And through the course of these last 6 years, really, of running the program, we've identified a few gaps. What areas do we need to improve on to make Hunting and Fishing Academy and the state of Tennessee at the forefront of the R3 movement? Those of you from East Tennessee may recognize this. This is a picture of the Cumberland Gap. It was the only thing I could imagine to have a picture for gaps. But the first one is our locations. Our Hunt Master model has really relied on private landowners to allow us to come use their property to teach youth and their families how to hunt and fish. Well, we've seen that they're less willing to donate their land for adults to come and learn on or even hunt on. So we're going to be looking at getting a few strategic locations across the state to be able to hold these adult workshops and hunts on to educate this new target audience. The next is our statewide reach. We are targeting this group of people that tend to live in urban and suburban areas. One of the largest areas is Davidson County, Williamson, Rutherford, right there in the middle of Tennessee. And as of right now, that's kind of a spot of the state where we don't have a dedicated person to run events. Chris and Jeb are east and west, and that's right in the middle for them. So we would like to be bringing on another field representative to handle this part of the state. And then third is our awareness. You know, it doesn't matter how good of a program, how good your curriculum is if you're not reaching the people that you need to recruit, retain, or reactivate. So we'd be bringing in a communication specialist to really focus on all the communication efforts the Hunting and Fishing Academies have, as long as giving them the tools they need to be able to succeed in their job. And then teaching. This whole program revolves around making sure people increase their skills and knowledge. And with dealing with adults, it brings in a new learning style. And we want to bring the best practices of learning and teaching to the program. So we would be looking to hire an education specialist as well to the curriculum for Hunting and Fishing Academy for all aspects of its program. And then lastly is effectiveness. You know, we do all this, but how do we measure it? And for Hunting and Fishing Academy, that's really going to be multifaceted. We're going to be looking at license sales. We'll be fully integrated into the Go Outdoors Tennessee event system. So we'll be able to track license sales. But in the short term, we need to know if people are actually increasing their skills and knowledge as well. Because if they come to our events, they have a good time, and they don't buy a license down the road, we need to be able to ask ourselves, well, why is that? Did they learn stuff when they came to our event? And if not, we need to know that so we can adapt as the program goes on to make our programs more effective. So we'd be looking to bring in some outside consultation, such as Matt Dunphy or DJ Case and Associates, to help us build an effective evaluation program for the Hunting and Fishing Academy to market all these things. So Hunting and Fishing Academy has been operating for 6 years under its current model, and we've reached pretty good numbers, and we're wanting to grow. And some people may be asking, you know, why now? And I was thinking about this for really the past 8 months, ever since we started down this road. And someone once told me, you know, luck is where opportunity and preparedness meets. And I got to say, I think this is a very lucky moment. Hunting and Fishing Academy has been running this program for 6 years now. We've learned a lot. We know what it takes to recruit people to hunting and fishing. And due to COVID in 2020, it showed us there's no shortage of people that want to learn how to do this. So we think it's the best moment to take advantage of the extra funds that have come through Pittman Robertson to expand this program and to reach even more people across Tennessee. So with that, I'll open it up to any questions the commissioners may have.
Taylor, I told a couple of years ago or maybe longer than that, when this started, I told Mike that I thought this was potentially the best program I've ever seen, because you actually take the kids out, take the parents out, and you camp and you hunt and you fish and do the things hands-on, and you don't just give them whatever and just send them out there. So I think it's great. My question, and I asked Mike, and I intended, he said that you'd be prepared, but going from 250 to 500, I questioned whether you could gear up that fast or not, and I'd like for you to defend that just a little bit, because I know that's getting volunteers and getting hunt masters and all that takes time and effort, and I just wonder if you can do that in 1 year.
Yes, sir. We fully believe that we could do it. Now, from 250,000 to 498,000 a year is a pretty large jump, but I honestly believe this is the next iteration of the program. I don't think there is another stepping stone for us to take. Now, we've learned really the past 3 years. I can actually show you another graph here. This is our growth over the program for really since its inception. And you can see the years that has the money sign under it. That's the first year that we came under funding from the Wildlife Agency. And you can see how much our numbers start to increase after that moment. And then the last two graphs are where we expect to go with this new program. And what we've really learned is that by hiring good people to do good work, you can ramp up. By hiring Chris and Jeb, we were dramatically able to increase our reach across the state. And we think by adding these key positions and these dedicated hunting locations, we remove a lot of the barriers that would prevent us from ramping up that fast. And Jeb and Chris can tell you one of the hardest things they've experienced to get new events on the ground and in turn get more participants is the location, finding people with property to allow us to come and hunt or teach people how to do these things. And with having another Middle Tennessee field representative and these dedicated hunting locations, we remove those barriers. So I have full confidence that we'd be able to ramp up the program as quickly. And pending the vote of this commission, we'll be posting our job descriptions and have people hired by early July.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from anyone? Brian?
This may not be the right time, but often I forget things. Would there be a way with our WMA system that we could free up some opportunities for all of these programs that we've talked about this morning?
Commissioner, I'll take that question. Certainly, I think we are willing and amenable to looking at how those can be utilized. I think the exclusivity part of when you start talking about public state-owned property, to be able to give any one of these partner organizations any type of exclusive rights to that property for any period of time is going to be very challenging and really not a mechanism under the authority. We as an agency don't have the ability to open or close a WMA. Only you, this commission, does. And once you proclaim a season to be open on a WMA, it's open. And anyone member of the public that qualifies and has the appropriate licenses can show up and utilize that. So while I hope there is opportunities that we can leverage, there's not a clear path, I think, for exactly what these organizations are looking for and how they want to utilize the property. Now, it's my understanding that Taylor can speak to it better. There is some money in this grant that is going to allow them to lease some property that they will have some control over. So I think that's one way that we're trying to address it.
Chris, while you're up there, can I ask this question? We allocate particular hunt dates for handicapped and veterans. Could, in some of our WMAs where we establish quotas, could we not identify a quota draw for a specific participation from a program like that?
You absolutely can.
So they could pattern or plan around that date, maybe one or two, or if you had one in West Tennessee and one in Middle and one East Tennessee that you identified, and even do it all on the same weekend or whatever the promotion would incur to be able to take advantage of that.
Absolutely, Commissioner, but there are opportunities if we want to go down the quota hunt route with a specified class of individuals or participants that would be eligible to apply. We've done something very similar with that at Buffalo Ridge with our Becoming an Outdoors Woman hunts. So that certainly is an option. We would need to know about those desires from these organizations as far as the calendar is concerned and what group of people we're talking about well enough in advance to be able to administer that quota hunt through our sales system.
Thank you.
And on that, I'd like to say in Hunting and Fishing Academy, we really emphasize the importance of WMAs as this is a public source. We know that one of the biggest barriers people perceive to getting into hunting and fishing is access to land because they think that you got to have a private lease to be able to go and do this. And that's not the case. Tennessee is very fortunate to have all these WMAs across the state. And we highlight those as great areas for them to go out to hunt and fish at. And we wouldn't want to take opportunity away from other people to be able to provide this for our participants. And especially with adults, we learned that going on a hunt is really good for a lot of things. It really builds excitement. But what we're focusing on with this target audience is teaching them the skills and knowledge. And that's why we really want these dedicated locations, these leases, so we can focus on teaching at these locations without interrupting somebody else's hunt. For example, if we're teaching people how to hang deer stands before deer season, we don't want to be interrupting squirrel hunters going through the woods. So, and having that environment for these new people is very important because they perceive hunting on public land as a very intimidating thing. They think of other hunters as being gatekeepers, wanting to keep out new people from these WMAs. So having these leases allows us to provide a good environment for them to learn these skills.
We've talked about $750,000 a year in outreach R3, and both programs need place to hunt. It seems a shame to me that we've got, not a shame, but it seems a potential. We've got 1 million acres of public land, and you've identified the problem. We've got a legal problem or we need to talk about, but it seems to me that there's an answer to that problem, and between staff and legal and whoever, if possible, we could get dates from both of these groups for the coming year that like they would use to deer and turkey hunt on Buffalo Ridge or Yanali or wherever it might be that would have access to that. It seems like we've got all this public land, and this is a stumbling block for expansion of this program, and there's an answer somewhere. So I would ask you guys to work on it and see if you can solve that problem, because I'm sure that both programs could come with a couple of 3 dates or more for the coming year. And in June, we need to see that and discuss it and maybe add it to the season settings if possible, because I think this is a potential to do some really good things. So anybody else? Thank you, Taylor. Appreciate it. Oh, excuse me, Frank. I'm sorry.
I just wanted to recognize personally, and I'm sure for everyone else, how much we appreciate the relationship with the R3 program, with the foundation, and now the Hunting Fish Academy for the Federation. Many children grow up in homes, and they may not have parents that hunt or fish, and they want to learn those skills. And I'm just really bullish on it. I think it's a great thing that we're doing, and I think we can collectively solve the venue problem. And I think you're taking the right steps to scale the program with the communications director and the Middle Tennessee rep. So I'm appreciative.
Thank you.
We're going to take a quick break. Let's everybody be back about 10:15. Deputy Director Chris Richardson. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Picking right back up along a similar thread to what we've heard, I want to invite Ben West up. If you'll direct your attention to two budget expansions that are requested, one on the second page, 6523 4-H shooting sports improvement, and also on the first page, 1256, the Lone Oaks improvement. That's Ben to come up and talk a little bit about those two projects. Ben?
Thank you, Chris. Commissioners, good morning. It's always a pleasure to be with you. And of course, that's what you would expect someone to say when they're asking for money, right? But actually, I was sitting in the audience yesterday as you were going through all of the proposed, regulation changes. And it struck me that this is what makes conservation in the U.S. work. Volunteers like yourself spending a lot of time and in your own time and expertise bringing to the table to help us make good decisions. So it really is a pleasure to be with you anytime I have a chance, because I appreciate what you do for conservation in Tennessee. Is this the clicker here? This proposal, I'm going to talk about the education proposal first, and then we'll talk about, and we can talk, see if there's questions about that. Then we can talk about the clays at Lone Oaks Farm. But this is an R3 proposal as well. Similar goals as the previous two, but a slightly different direction. You've heard that, we need to target college students and we need to target millennials. And I think both of those things are true. I'm going to talk to you about why I think we should also target K through 12 students. But first, I want to share a little bit of a personal story with you. I would say how many years ago, but it's been a few. The year that I finished 8th grade, I was 13 or 14 years old. And that summer had a chance to go to an event that doesn't exist anymore, unfortunately, in Tennessee, called 4-H Wildlife Conference. It was actually a program that TWRA and UT Extension partnered on for a couple of decades and stopped, unfortunately, a few days, maybe 15 years ago. But it was a really popular program. I got involved because I was interested in science, and I was told it was a big science program. And at that time, I thought I might have a career as a professional crappie fisherman when I grew up. So that hasn't worked out so well. But I knew I was going to learn a little bit about science, and I was going to get to spend a week outdoors and learning about fish and wildlife. So drove all the way to Greenville to our Tennessee's 4-H Center in Greenville, and spent an entire week with a bunch of fish and wildlife biologists, some that worked for the university, many that worked for TWRA. And, I did things I'd never thought of before. I seined darters out of a creek, and I shot stuff, and I remember I learned how to tell the difference between a female and a male box turtle. I remembered I had all these experiences that I'd never had before. And I went home, and on Friday, finally got home, and my mom said, well, hey, did you have a good week? I said, yeah, it was awesome. She said, what did you learn? She said, I learned what I want to do with the rest of my life. I want to be a wildlife biologist. That was in 8th grade, and it stuck. So ended up going to school, at UT Martin, getting a wildlife degree, and then went to school longer than my parents thought a person could go to school. But I share that to say this 1 week in my life transformed everything that came after. And I'm not unique in that. Most of you can look back in your life and see one moment, a day or a week, or even just a very small moment in time that changed how you thought about the world the rest of your life. And that's really what we want to try and do with the suite of programs that we're proposing in this proposal, to give kids experiences like this, hands-on, real-world experiences that help them see the natural world, help them see fish and wildlife in the outdoors in a way that you can't replicate in a website. Even though we need to do virtual stuff, you can't replicate in a video. The only way to do it is hands-on. And so I'm gonna show you 3 initiatives that we want to pursue to give lots and lots and lots of kids in Tennessee these kinds of experiences. So 3 basic initiatives. The first one is to develop outdoor-related education programs at education centers across the state to give kids these kinds of experiences. This is a shot of a young lady at Lone Oaks Farm. These programs I'm going to talk about are modeled after what we've been doing at Lone Oaks Farm now for about 5 years. We've had hundreds of kids, thousands of kids come to Lone Oaks the past 5 years and have experiences like this. We know that most of the kids that come to Lone Oaks and do this, it's the first fish they've ever caught. And they are kids that would never have had that experience if not coming to the farm for that day. And so we give kids these kind of experiences now with the clays. We give them, shooting experiences. We host a lot of hunting and fishing academy programs. We do some hunting there. But what we do there is really even more basic. This is the end goal, but we take one step back and start maybe a step or two ahead of this and try and give kids these kind of experiences. Literally just getting them outdoors and comfortable with being outdoors. When we started Lone Oaks, the education programs at Lone Oaks about 5 years ago, I had read the literature that shows that kids spend about half the amount of time outdoors as their parents did. Well, they spend much less time outdoors than their parents did. And I read the literature, but then when you see it in real life, it smacks you in the face a little bit. When you take a group of fifth graders, 50 fifth graders into the woods and ask them, how many of you have never gone for a walk in the woods before? And half of them raise their hand. It's pretty striking. And these are not kids from inner city Memphis. These are kids from McNairy County and Hardeman County and Chester County. Many of them live in the country, but they don't spend time outdoors. So as we're trying to recruit the next generation of hunters and anglers and boaters, we first got to realize that increasingly we're going to be trying to recruit people that spent a childhood locked up indoors with no connection to the outdoors whatsoever. We want to, stand up some programs that provide that first gateway into the outdoors. And we found a Trojan horse at Lone Oaks Farm to do it, and it's STEM education. This may look like an electrofishing program for kids, but it's not. It's an 8th grade math program. And that's the way we market those programs at Lone Oaks. We designed this fish sampling lab to hit 8th grade math standards. And what that does all of a sudden is open us up to every kind of school system. This year at Lone Oaks Farm, we'll have about 5,000 kids come there as part of day field trip programs under our STEM education program. But we use things like fish sampling and aquatic sampling and bird watching and all kinds of outdoor activities as the context to teach it. So then all of a sudden, every teacher is interested in this kind of thing. Every teacher wants to give their kids hands-on experiences that align with what they're teaching in the school system. So this year, we're going to do about 5,000 kids. We've been growing 25% a year every year since we opened. We think our growth horizon at Lone Oaks is in about 10 years, we'll be having 40 to 50,000 kids coming there a year from the entire Mid-South area. And so we're proposing funding to fund an educator at Lone Oaks to focus on fish, wildlife, outdoor recreation. They'll be joining a team of other educators at Lone Oaks Farm. We'll have, with this position, we'll have a team of 5 full-time educators that all work kind of in different specialty areas. We've got many of these are funded by partners. So USDA NRCS has funded a position, for example, that focuses on soil and water conservation. The Tennessee Soybean Promotion Board has funded a position to focus on agriculture. This position would focus on fish and wildlife. And in addition to that, and Lone Oaks, by the way, if you don't know where it is bottom left there, that bottom left circle. And those circles are a 75-mile radius. That's about the distance that schools can go for a day field trip. By the time they get to the school, get on the bus, get to an education center, go through the program and get home, 75 miles is about the radius. The other circle is around Buffalo Ridge. And, we propose a partnership between the university and the commission and the agency to start a similar program at Buffalo Ridge with the first educator. And that's what this would be, to start putting together and marketing and developing education programs. If you look at those 2 circles, you notice they encompass most of Memphis, all of Memphis, and a big chunk of Nashville. Within each of those circles, there's about 450,000 K through 12 students. So a huge, huge audience to potentially touch. Some point in the future, perhaps we could talk about expanding this program to Oak Ridge. And then all of a sudden you have a really broad coverage across the state. So that was the first. The second is summer day camps. About 4 years ago, I had to go to Austin, Texas for a work thing. And I took my 12-year-old daughter with me and I enrolled her. She didn't have anything to do that week. She wanted to go to Texas. I started looking for things for her to do while I was working and she was there. And I stumbled across this website, Wild and Wet Adventure Camp. 2 retired school teachers in Austin. They retired and they said, we still want to work with kids. So they started this summer day camp program. And it's all built around outdoor recreation. They said, I got a chance to visit with them. They said, our model was to make things easy for parents. So we let parents drop their kids off, before 8 o'clock. They don't have to pick them up until 6. And while they're with us, we take them kayaking and fishing. And they go fishing. They do all kinds of stuff. I thought this would be a great model in Tennessee to try and reach groups that we simply don't reach very much. If you look at our urban centers, there's a tremendous demand for good, educational, safe childcare in the summer. And this will be an opportunity to tap into groups and into families by solving parents' problems. But then by doing that, they give us access to their kids and we can introduce them to the outdoors. And then lastly, this program would support 4-H shooting sports. Both our larger 4-H shooting sports program in the state, which is UT Extension's second or third largest educational program, but also our fastest growing one. We think we can grow this program by 50% pretty easily over the next 5 years. It also would support outdoor recreation programs at our 4 4-H centers across the state. So we send about 5,500 kids every year to 4-H camp in Greenville, in Crossville, in Columbia, and starting next summer at Lone Oaks Farm. And we have archery ranges, we have shooting ranges. Just shooting as an example, of the 5,500 kids that come to 4-H camp every summer, about 4,500 of them go to the rifle range. And we found out that 60% of them, it's the first time they've ever fired a firearm. So it's a connection point to give kids these very initial experiences that hopefully will inspire interest to get involved into deeper programs like Hunting and Fishing Academy. To preempt Commissioner Butt's question, one of the things we've been doing a lot is talking to the Federation about how to work together. And we think there's great opportunity to connect these initial programs that we're giving to kids. And then through that, select kids and identify kids who are interested in deeper experiences and then passing them off to Hunting and Fishing Academy and other programs that they do. So with that, I will stop and then we can talk about the clays later. And I'll stop to see if there are any questions about these.
Does anybody have any questions?
Commissioner.
I'm looking right at you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ben, when you describe the age groups, K through 12, then I'm sure there's been consideration as far as categorizing those age groups. And I see if this program is successful in knowing how it's developed at Lone Oaks, that you focus one aspect of the program from K through maybe 3rd grade, and 3rd grade through 6th grade or 7th.
Right.
Depending on the participation you get from those kids who are interested in 4-H. Mm-hmm. And the K through 3 would, be a different category as well. I'm concerned if we don't identify those age groups. High school doesn't relate to those younger groups for the most part, except for a few individuals who understand that and are matured to the point that they see it, but they like to participate in their own age group programs. Mm-hmm. Do you anticipate the development and as I understand the grant and the proposal, then this is going to be a 3-year program?
Two.
Two.
With hopeful continuation if we're successful.
So, we're asked to consider a 3-year program that's on our proposal. So, and that my question is, if we maintain 3 as we're requested to budget it, then there's a lot of development that has to take place if we're looking at Buffalo Ridge. We don't have the facility down there to accommodate 60 kids a day for 6 weeks for a summer camp. How are we looking to coordinate the work that's been done and the programs that exist there, and not compromise the success of those programs with adding this additional emphasis? And I'm not saying it's not great. I think it is, and much needed. And so as our range is finished down there, are we coordinating with the staff and with the agency and with the potential for seeing how that the project at Buffalo Ridge is developed, so that we address all of those programs? And that's one of my concerns, because Lone Oaks is a different entity in and of itself. You've got the success of the shooting range, and you've got the success of the programs, and you have the lakes and the availability of that, and you've got construction of your dormitories that's going up, and you're targeting specifically those age groups. Is that going to be the direction at Buffalo Ridge, or are we going to have a different type program, different type of facility? And so I think for the commissioner, especially for me, is the concern of how we're going to address all of that and how it's going to come together, and how we're going to utilize these programs that we've heard from, and how that they're all going to benefit each other without a whole lot of overlap. Now, there may be some, but, we have to understand that the whole emphasis of R3 is to develop interest from youth and get them back outdoors and give them that experience that they don't get. So that's my concern. And as we proceed with the request, and that's one thing I wanted to understand. Chris said it's 3 years, and you told me it was 2. So, we need to have some clarification on that. As we move forward with that discussion, then, between the two of you, maybe you can address that.
Well, and Chris, you may want to address that. From what I was told, all of these requests are 2-year requests. So, I mean, if it's up for debate, you could fund it for 10 years. That'd be okay.
Yeah. And that's my error, Commissioner Butt, on the sheets with this being 3 years. I think what ultimately happened as I looked at it last night is I neglected when I looked at the total amount that was requested, neglected to take into consideration the amount of contribution that Ben and UT are making in order to make the match that made up that 1.2 million of the total project cost. Certainly, we also only have the ability to really set 2 budget years. You set the budget year that we're upcoming, and then in August, we're going to ask you to set the 24 budget. We won't be working on the 25 budget until we get to August of 23. So that's the most that we can set in stone. Certainly, we'll make the appropriate changes to reflect that this request is a 2-year request, not a 3-year request.
So, and also the question is that the proposal was for an educator at Buffalo Ridge.
Correct.
As well as at Lone Oak. Are they going to be different individuals? And the specialist that was requested across the state, can you speak to those positions?
Absolutely. So the position at Lone Oaks Farm will work within our existing and growing team of educators to work with school groups and to accommodate this growth that is coming, but with a particular focus on outdoor recreation, on hunting, fishing, shooting, etc. The position at Buffalo Ridge will be a little different because it'll be the first full-time educator position at Buffalo Ridge. And this came about through conversations with agency leadership about trying to develop strategies to drive more traffic and create more public value at Buffalo Ridge to fully utilize that facility. We think the model that we're using at Lone Oaks Farm is a good model, but it doesn't mean they'll be the same. You know, and your question about, well, how will we do this in 3 years? I have no idea. Just like when we started the program at Lone Oaks Farm, we didn't know where that would lead us in 3 years. But we are obviously committed. You know, the person would be a UT employee, but they'll be stationed at your facility. So we will develop the protocols and the mechanisms to make sure there's good communication so that we develop the program in true partnership and it meets the needs of the agency and the commission. I will say your concern or your questions about facilities, that's obviously something we need to talk about. But I will tell you, when we launched the program at Lone Oaks Farm, we had a shed and a porta potty. And the first year we had about 1,000 kids, and it's grown from there. You won't launch this program in year one and have 5,000 kids. It's going to start small and it will grow over time. So those are those two positions. The statewide specialist position is a position that would provide leadership, and I don't mean reporting, but be a resource to those educators there, and perhaps at someday at the Oak Ridge WMA and facility, but also coordinate the summer day camps at urban centers across the state. I will say that is a position that we think is going to be part of a new center we're trying to create at UT called the Center for Outdoor Recreation and Economy, to provide resources and outdoor recreation in a big way. That's a position that we're going to be seeking hardline state funding for in the next legislative session or two. So if we're successful with that, that'll release those resources to perhaps fund the Oak Ridge position.
I have a two-part question. It's coordinating with Dr. Stokes on that as far as developing the extension program.
Yes.
And then do you have individuals in mind for those two educator positions? And I've tried to do my due diligence on this, and I know that Scott Reese has been very instrumental in developing and helping with the program at Lone Oaks. And he's also been working with the staff at Buffalo Ridge for a number of years.
Yep.
In developing some of those programs. So if we have individuals like him, then I think we'll be very successful in doing that. So
yeah. So I think, we can talk about some of that, but yeah, we do have some folks in mind that we want to recruit.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
I have a couple
Anybody else?
questions. Oh,
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I have a couple questions. How would this at the Buffalo Ridge? Would that change the existing programs like the outdoor women and the juvenile hunts and are those still going to be in place, or are they going to be?
Yeah.
How's that going to work?
Well, I'll just say from our perspective, those aren't our programs. So,
Okay.
But we don't see any conflict, and we see them being a symbiotic to each other. But
Okay, and one more question for Ben. Tell me a little bit more about your summer child camps, the specifics of it.
Wild Child.
Wild
And
Child.
you were a little bit involved in one of those
Yeah,
last summer, I think, right? Yeah. So the basic idea is to offer in starting with urban centers, offer day childcare programs Monday through Friday. Probably the first summer we'll start with a 4-week program, maybe 6, and allow parents to sign up, and we'll be able to drop their children off, at 7:30 at some public location. The way they run this program in Texas, they use the city parks, and parents would drop their kids off at the city parks from 7:30 to 9. And at 9 o'clock, they got on a bus and they went kayaking for the day, or they went to shooting range for the day, or they went to, so that, and then at the end of the day, you bring the kids back there and the parents pick them up there. That program in Texas, in Austin, had like 500 kids in it a summer. And, again, it is solving the problems of the gatekeepers of kids. Teachers and parents control what kids do. And if you can solve their problems, and you can get access to the children. Parents have a problem of good, educational, interesting childcare. So we think we could really tap into families that we're not going to tap into any other way.
So very similar to the Wild Child, like it was.
Absolutely.
In SJ.
Yes.
Same.
Yep.
Okay. Just checking. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
All right, whoever.
All right.
You go ahead.
All right. Well, so I'm in favor of everything you've talked about. The only thing I'm struggling with is I've never really seen this is so new. I've never really seen like a strategic plan for Buffalo Ridge and how this might change the way that I've gotten to know Buffalo Ridge and how that might, I don't know. It just seems like something that's really new and I'd like to get some more feedback on it before I make any, before I extend a vote on anything that changes the dynamics of Buffalo Ridge. I don't know how the other, maybe there are people that know more than I do on commission that know about this, but that's the only thing that I'm struggling with a little bit.
And the only response I have to that is we included that as part of the proposal through discussions with leadership. Obviously, Buffalo Ridge is your piece of property to develop your vision on. If part of that vision is K through 12 education, we think we could be a great partner there.
I know. Can you expand on that, Greg? We discussed that.
Sure. And what I seem to be hearing is concern that this request is somehow going to fundamentally change the way Buffalo has operated in the past. And that's certainly not the vision the director's office has, and not the intention. The intention, and this is a concept that really has been in discussion, at least on some levels, about modeling a STEM type education program at Buffalo for many years, really since the inception of the program at Lone Oaks. We are in desperate need of a more defined strategic plan. We want to utilize the partnership with Ben and UT both to develop that and craft it. But it is not my intention or expectation that any of the events or activities that have gone on at Buffalo would be disrupted. We are looking to add more things to Buffalo Ridge, additions to it, not changes of direction or detracting from anything that's been so successful there.
Let me add just one quick thing to that, just to give you a little flavor for what those programs are. So Buffalo Ridge is 1,600 acres ish, right? Lone Oaks Farm is 1,200 acres. That STEM program probably exists on 20 or 30 acres total. We don't have kids running all around the farm. You bring a bunch of fourth graders to a place, you don't want them running everywhere. So, right, in terms of physical footprint at Buffalo Ridge or anywhere else, it's a relatively small physical footprint. If that helps you.
Most of your programs are weekdays.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, our target are schools. So 95% of what we do are Monday through Friday school field trips.
Following up on what Chris said, alluded to, and Ben said, I think there's so many potential opportunities at Buffalo Ridge that have evolved since Buffalo Ridge's inception, and this is kind of the plan and new ideas and that kind of thing. So we really don't have a strategic plan, vision, but it's my hope that between University of Tennessee and Ben and our administration, they can have other partners sit and develop that with the experts help at the University of Tennessee that have that expertise, and develop something that at Buffalo Ridge that'll answer those questions. And then still do the shooting and the things that we've already developed. But I think that's where you're going. So I think it's a good thing. Hank, you had a question or not?
Yep. Parallel with what Commissioner Jones said, I'd love to see and I haven't heard from the agency leadership about the vision for the property. And so I'd love to see that vision for that property. I can't imagine if we had 5,000 to 10,000 students there that won't impact the quality of hunting for the youth hunts and the veteran hunts, and it may not. So that would be my concern and also the donor of the land, what would they want? Obviously it's ours at this point, but what would they want and their vision for the property? So that would get me a lot more comfortable if I knew those things.
Just real quick, y'all just bear with me. We started this retention and recruitment program in 2005. And you know, it was basically kind of a new nationwide effort. And it's to see it evolve in 17 or 18 years from where we started it with the agency and where it is now. I would submit to you that COVID got us new license buyers, but I would suggest that if it hadn't been for the efforts of the agency, Jennifer and the people that came before her, but she's doing a better job, and the Federation Foundation, University of Tennessee, all of these efforts come together, and we got the largest increase in license sales as a percentage, I suppose, in the country. And we're holding on to them. And I would suggest to you that these programs are the reason. And I'm very proud that the partners, and I think it's fabulous. And I'd rather put the money in this than I had a Mallard telemetry study. So I want to go on record as saying that. So if any other, you got something else?
I was just going to add to that. I agree with everything you said, all your compliments. But I'd also add, I compliment the governor and the General Assembly and the way that they handled the COVID situation, and just the fact that we have more people that want to move to Tennessee and live here and bring the outdoorsman lifestyle that they enjoyed in other states and bring it here to Tennessee. So there's a very broad group of people out there that need to be commended for getting participation up in the state.
All right, one more quick thing. Ben, would you give us just a little quick summary of your deal with Ford? You mind doing that?
How much time do you have?
Just 3 minutes.
Yeah. So we've been working for 4 or 5 years with the Wildlife Federation on a stream mitigation project at Lone Oaks Farm. Our plan was to mitigate about 20,000 feet of stream, restore it, create a bank, and then sell those credits as developers needed them. We were just at the right time and the right place when Ford came to Tennessee looking for a potential to develop Blue Oval City. That's a massive construction project. They're going to pave over thousands of feet of stream. They had a huge mitigation credit need, and we happened to be the only provider in the region that had the credits. And so they wrote a big check, $16.5 million for our credits. And in exchange, we're gonna use a portion of that to actually restore the streams at Lone Oaks, about 20,000 feet. But there's also some net revenue, and we'll invest those dollars into education at Lone Oaks long term.
I think that's great. Yeah. Anybody else have anything for Ben? Thank you, Ben. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and just a quick explanation of how that the dollars are divided up and how that the $432,000 that's in our budget versus the cost of the program for the next 2 years. Could you speak to that quickly?
So the 432 represents the federal money that would be associated 75% of the overall project cost for that year. So in fiscal year 23, that 432 represents 75% of the overall cost of the program. Ben is making the match, and so it's able to be funded with 100% federal dollars.
And so it's my understanding that the cost of the program for 2 years is approximately 1.2 or a little more than that.
Over 2 years.
Yeah, over 2 years. Yeah.
While you're up there, you said you were going to make a change, that this was a 2 year.
Yes. In the years column.
Then I suppose the foundation that says 3 years will be changed to a 2 year.
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions or comments, amendments? Hearing none, the Budget Committee, I need a motion, please.
I assume you need a motion to.
We need a motion for the committee to approve the FY23 expansions, and we've got 2 changes in the years for 2 years and 2 years for the UT and for the Federation. I mean the foundation.
Can I ask another question before we do that?
Let's
get a motion on the table first.
I'll put a motion on the floor. If it gets a second, we can have discussion.
Yeah.
Second.
All right, discussion. Commissioner Butt.
I don't remember whether it was budget approval or expansion approval on the bulldozers that we were to purchase from the state. My understanding is we've only been able to acquire 6 of those, so that left a considerable amount of money with the program managers in place, many of them today. Is that money being spent on needed equipment between now and the end of June to be able to utilize that money that we approved? And if we don't use it, does it go away? So if you'll speak to that quickly.
Certainly. On equipment purchases, generally staff needs to seek approval if they have money in their budget to purchase something different than what was originally approved or dictated by the commission's budget approvals. I'm looking to Jason a little bit if he has some more information on the bulldozers. Specifically, I know there was more requested than what we ultimately purchased, but I don't know if he wants to add a little bit to that. I don't know exactly the status on how many we've actually been able to acquire at this point.
So 6 of those will be coming to the state. I think 4 of those have been acquired at this time. That's 1 per region. And then 2 of those will go to our forestry work units and be utilized across the state.
So if we're only purchasing 6, was it specifically for those from the state, or can we spend the money that we didn't spend on bulldozers?
So during this budget process, they were aware that that's what we reduced the number to. And they came back through the wildlife division and they made requests for the equipment that they wanted. And we approved every piece of equipment with the exception of 2 that all the WM managers requested.
Thank you. Make sure that was utilized and it didn't go to waste. So,
Yeah, and to that point, Commissioner, but the money, if we have a piece of equipment that is unspent for whatever reason in a given year, the money doesn't leave the TWRA coffers. We just rolled into the rainy day fund. And then the budget that we will operate under beginning July 1st of this year would include funding for all of the requested equipment by the divisions.
Are there any other questions on the committee?
I would like to just point out a couple of things
Okay.
about this request, if I might. You can see the total amount of requested is just a little over $17 million. Of that, approximately 14 or 13 million of that 17 is one-time money. These are capital improvements, equipment needs that need to be replaced. You can see the projects that are referred to under the years column as continuing would be projects that will continue every year until such time as the commission sees fit to reduce those amounts or change them. I would note the budget for Lake Hofford, 1333, that is a continuation budget. However, the continuation amount will not be the $996,200. The $996,200 includes considerable amount of funding for one-time expenditures, security needs, new fishing docks, ADA accommodations, things that are needed at the lake, erosion control surrounding the dam. The recurring cost for the budget for Carroll Lake will be approximately $300,000 a year. Likewise, on some of the other continuation budgets, for example, the increased funding for habitat work at North Cumberland, we added 46,000 acres to North Cumberland with the acquisition of the Ed Carter unit. So we're trying to true those budgets up to make sure there's the appropriate amount available for the work that goes on. I'll stop there and certainly be happy to answer any additional questions. I would also kind of want to point out the funding. There's different pots of money that we are able to utilize. And each one of those pots carries with it some sort of restriction. For example, the programs that you've heard about here today are PR money that would have only recently been allowed by the federal government to be spent on R3 related projects. So a lot of the dollars that you saw going to in this budget going to those would have ordinarily been spent on shooting ranges. But I would say that even with this fully funded budget, we have an additional $2.2 million or so of available uncommitted Pittman-Robertson funding related to hunter education and shooting ranges that could be utilized if a project comes up that needs to be funded, or if a new range was to come in to play somewhere else in the state, we would have a little powder dry there to consider that at a future decision by the commission. There is about $7 million of wildlife restoration money that's included in this budget that is new this year that we didn't know we had when you approved the FY23 budget last year. That is due to increased sales of hunting, fishing related equipment and ammunition and guns And the apportionment numbers came in after you all approved the FY23 budget. So overall, if these expansions are approved, we're looking at approximately $130 million budget with very little or no expenditures from the rainy day fund included in it. We're very fortunate that the federal apportionments have been so high. We're very fortunate that the license sales have increased. We're very fortunate that real estate is changing hands as fast as it is in Tennessee, which we benefit from that real estate transfer tax at a certain level. So with that, I'll stop and be happy to answer any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I have another question. I'm a tremendous supporter of the Hunters for the Hungry program, and I know the governor put, I think, $150,000 into that program, and I would either address it to you or to Mike at this point. Are we contributing to the success of that program, or is the money that's been allocated, is it sufficient to cover the need? Or before we do this budget expansion, can we help the program, or where are we on this?
Commissioner, Mike Butler, Tennessee Wildlife Federation. That program's budget is around a little bit over $400,000, and we partner extensively with the agency. As far as funding from the agency, there is no allocated funding from the agency, but we work very closely with the licensing division. So when you go in to the checkoff system, you can check a box that says, when you buy your license, would you like to donate? And I'll in the spirit of transparency, those funds we've seen a significant drop in that donor contribution to the program over the last year. And we're trying to figure out exactly what is driving that. But the answer to your question is that we have to raise money every year to make the program work, even with the governor's appropriations, which we greatly appreciate. Moving forward, we are working hard to expand that program to provide more outlets for people to donate deer so they can hunt more. And I think that's a critical piece of the expansion. Does that answer your question adequately?
Well, I know from firsthand experience, the processors are increasing their cost and the cost of operations increasing. And when it started out, I think we supplemented maybe 35 and it's gone up to 50. And then I don't know exactly where it is for this coming year, but is there a shortfall in that part of the?
There are a couple of things. Prior to inflation hitting, we increased the amount that we pay per processed deer to $60 per deer. Okay. And that was because the processors hadn't had an increase in 8 to 10 years. On the other side of it, and I'll point this out, that one of the most critical pieces of funding is that it has to be sustained funding, because we have to have predictability with those processors. Because if we ever have a situation where somebody comes in and donates a deer and there's not money to pay for it, or we outpunt our coverage with a processor, we lose those customers, and it takes almost nothing to lose them. Yeah. So in terms of the type of funding that we're looking for, it is that sustained funding over time so that we can make it very predictable for these processors. And Andy Holt's doing a good job recruiting new processors. We're partnering with them at Ag. That has resulted in 15 or 13 new processors just last year going into the program. But with the issues of CWD in West Tennessee, the need to move more deer through the system, those are all things that are putting pressure on the program. So we are actively looking for funding.
Okay. So with that being said, would it be in order to add 50,000 to the expansion for this particular budget and then put it into our budget going forward, moving forward?
I'm going to suggest that perhaps the proper way to do it would be to ask the Federation to maybe give us a report on it, maybe make a request, let it go through the regular administrative budgeting process before we just throw money at something we're not real sure that they might need more or less than that. So I would prefer that it go through the normal budgeting process. It's a good point, but I'd rather for it to be through the regular process, if that's all right.
Well, I would honor your request, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to make sure that we had adequate discussion about it going
Okay.
forward. Thank you.
Commissioner Butt, I can certainly work with Mr. Butler and see what that report looks like, what the funding deficiencies need it may be, and have some discussions about what we might be able to bring to you for the 24 budget year.
Well, I've been participating active in the program for 15 to 20 years, and every fall they call and say, how many deer are you bringing? So, you know, that's the reason I ask for the discussion, because I know it's a successful program.
Absolutely.
Anyone else? Yes.
First of all, I'd like to commend staff on bringing us a comprehensive list of expansions this early in the process. Last year it was in August, and for us to be able to consider them this early in the process, I think makes it easier for commission. It makes it easier for those that are maybe watching what we do to interpret our budget, and I think that's a great thing. You know, the other thing I would say, and it would have been nice to have this maybe 2 or 3 days earlier, but I've taken the time and looked at all these projects, and, you know, we made a comment earlier about more people coming to the state of Tennessee and the importance of R3 and the impact that COVID had. But I look at the other expansions that are taking place, and all of these are creating more opportunities for hunters and fishermen to get out and enjoy the outdoors. And I think that that's a great thing. And so my motion still stands. I will say that I'm just a little bit concerned. I'm just a little bit uncomfortable with the Buffalo Ridge thing. I wish we had more details about the impact of those changes. I'm going to throw out an amendment to my motion to maybe withdraw that Buffalo Ridge portion for 30 days, pending a little bit more information. If I can get a second and some discussion, then
How does that affect the purpose of the expansions was to get them into this July the 1st budget? How does that affect that if we put that off a month and do it in June?
If we're talking about that one single specific expansion, I think we can work with that. I mean, the advantages for the timing really come down more on the execution of contracts and procurements. I don't want to in any way, I'd like to hear Ben's thoughts on what effect that may have, or if there is a way to modify the motion to perhaps limit the non-approval to the funding associated with the Buffalo Ridge educator position, because there are other things there that are going on at Lone Oak and Wild Child that maybe aren't related to
it's
Buffalo.
only related to Buffalo Ridge.
All right, let me ask you this. What is it that they're going to develop a strategic plan, hopefully with UT and others. What is it specifically that you want to see? What do you want to answer to specifically? I mean, you want to make sure it doesn't disturb what we're doing, but I mean, right now there's not a written strategic plan. So what would it be? What would it be changing? What do you want them to bring to us?
Just more details about the request and its impact on Buffalo Ridge. I'd like to have just a little bit more detail on that. I don't know why, but just because of Buffalo Ridge, and I know that because this is new to me, that one item just stands out as something that if we had more detail, I'd be more comfortable making the decision. And that's just me. Everybody else may be comfortable with it, and if we are, then the amendment will die. So I don't get my feelings hurt either way.
Chairman Box.
When are these funds available?
When
are the funds available?
All of the expansions here would be triggered on July 1 with the start of the new fiscal year,
Okay.
FY23.
I kind of agree with Commissioner Jones. I'd just like to have a little bit more information on.
I second the motion. I second the amendment.
All right, so we have a motion, and now we've had an amendment to the motion and a second. So we're going to vote on the amendment. You can discuss if anybody, give me a second. Is there any discussion on Commissioner Jones's amendment? Everybody understand what he's asking, oppose it or whatever?
I understand that there's
So-
been a request from the staff at Buffalo Ridge to submit their vision and maybe operation of how to incorporate that. Is that been submitted to the agency? Does 30 days clarify that and give us an opportunity to talk about that maybe at the June meeting so we can approve that segment of the expansion then?
We can certainly have more detail together for you and some more information in that regard by the June meeting.
Would that address your concerns?
That's what the motion is.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
That's what the motion is.
Okay.
On the amendment, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Amendment carries. We've got a motion for approval for the expansions as amended, which means the funding for the educator at Buffalo Ridge and a change in the 2-year versus 3-year for the UT and for the foundation. Is that correct as far as your amendment? I mean, for your motion? Okay. Got a motion, a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. I believe that's all we've got for the Budget Committee. Is that correct?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission.
Madam Chairman, the Budget Committee has met and recommended, and I move approval of the FY '23 expansions as amended.
Okay, I have a motion to approve FY '23 full commission.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Butt. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. So that concludes the business of the commission. We're finished. I've got a few things I wanted to say. Thank you all for, I know this has been the last couple of days have been trying, so I appreciate everybody's patience. I'd like to have a few words with Jimmy Granberry, if he's watching, if he's here. I think he's on Zoom. He has lost his mother 2 days ago, has not been able to be here at the meeting. So we miss him, and please keep him in your prayers. It's tough for him. So Jimmy, if you're watching, we miss you and we love you. We'll continue to pray for you. And I've lost my dad this month as well. So it's been a rough month for TWRA, I believe. So, and Miss Molly Wilson lost her mother. So April has been trying, but we continue to pray for you all. I want to thank the Federation for awesome hats. Thank you so much. And I'd like to thank Joey with the foundation for the dinner last night. Appreciate you feeding us. It was delicious. So I appreciate that. And I've also like to thank a couple people. I'm trying to do this every month, just recognize a few people. I'd like to thank Betsy and Mary. And we're still praying for Danette. She's not be able to be here. Still, I think she's continued her treatment or completed. So I'm going to continue to pray for her. And thank you and Mary for helping with all the items on the list. So. And the Region 1 girl set up the hospitality. Thank you for doing that. And where is she? Thank you, Lisa. Thank you for doing that. And thank you, Tracy, for being our legal advisor, helping me. And trying to think of anything else? Any other discussion, commission, or questions? Any announcements or discussion from Director Wilson or W. Maxidon?
Madam Chair, I do have an announcement.
Sure.
Thank you. Yesterday, a lot of us were able to go to Humboldt Hatchery, as Madam Chair mentioned, and it's a pretty cool place to go to. I can remember when I started my career a while back, one of the first places I was able to visit was Humboldt Hatchery, and it was a great place then. But to see what's happened from then until today is just amazing. It's amazing transformation. And I've seen some amazing transformations in my career. I've been fortunate to be able to work with great commissions, great commissioners, present company included. Some incredible TWA employees, hardworking, dedicated, passionate, present company included. And, it's not often as you can say you never dread a day of going to work. And I've been able to say that my entire career. I've been working for 42 years. So anyway, I've had great experiences. Like I said, great work with some great people. And I started my career here in Jackson in 1980. So I think, this is where we're going. So today I'm going to announce the end of my career or my retirement from my career here in Jackson. So I think it's pretty appropriate that I say that. I'm not leaving because of anything. There's nothing bad. In fact, it's all good. The agency's in great shape financially. We got some great programs. They've got wheels on them. We're talking about Buffalo Ridge. We've been talking about Oak Ridge. The Build Ant Cities for Fishing Lakes project is up and running. It will be soon, and it's got some wheels on it too. And anyway, I've been working for 42 years. I'm getting up there in age. I'm not as old as Commissioner Cox, but I'm getting close. And I've got a grandchild due in June. So I don't plan on, leaving right away. I plan on hanging around or being around to be in whatever capacity I can be, whether it help with the budget, help with the season setting, and just whatever advisory role or whatever role I can play to help with the transition to the next director. So I plan on being around till around the 1st of September. So there's no goodbyes right now because we have plenty of time for that. But this is we got about 4 months for y'all to do your job and do your duty and get somebody to take my place. So it's been an incredible ride. It's been a great time. I'm blessed, like I said, to have this career that I've had. And with that, Madam Chair, I have no further announcements. Thank you. I'm smiling a lot. I don't know what that means. I'm going to miss everybody, but I'm looking forward to retirement. So.
Wow. Well, I wanted to say first that I know that everyone on this commission loves you and Molly like family. Mm-hmm. And we're a bit jealous because you have a lot more time and mm-hmm. for lots of fun. But your service has been incredible. And we all appreciate everything. The state of Tennessee appreciates everything you've done and put in this. You've got a lot of achievements, and we're very proud of you.
Thank you.
So, thank you. Commissioner Wright?
Yeah, I just want to address you, Bobby, and tell you that I know I speak for everyone in the room. It's just been a distinct pleasure to serve with you. It's been an honor to serve with you and serve you. It's been a long and storied career that you've had, and very few people make it to the director's seat, and you did that. No one's ever seen you mistreat an employee or another person. You remind me of my dad. I never saw him do the wrong thing. Well, I never saw you do the wrong thing. I never saw you treat anyone with anything other than kindness and humility. And I think everybody's noticed that. I want to call attention to all that we have before us and then on us as an agency with season settings, audit, CWD. We have a new PO starting, I guess it's next week. Asian carp, the Bill Dance Fishing Trail. So it's a big weight for someone to carry. We're going to need to have just a really rigorous and careful search for a permanent director. And we need to take our time. We need to do that right for continuity of leadership and the preservation of our culture. And anytime, it's not anyone's fault, but anytime a leader announces their retirement, everyone's on edge. Employees wonder, what's my future? Who's our leader? And that is not your fault, but that is a reality. And so I personally believe that the optimal scenario here would be to appoint an interim director and make sure you stay to advise them and lead them in their new role as they take this over so that we can take our time for our search. And I believe that would be the best thing for the agency. And I know in your heart, you always want the best thing for the agency. So I have a motion to make before the commission, and I move that effective Monday, May 2nd, that we appoint Deputy Director Maxidon as the interim director, and that Bobby's appointment as director would expire on that day, and he would serve as an advisor to the director, and that the director and his staff would work with HR to make certain that the compensation and benefits that Director Wilson enjoys now continue until his retirement in September. And that the interim director would make sure that Bobby has all the flexibility to work within the office or at home as needed during that time. And that we start a rigorous search at this as soon as practical. That's my motion.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Okay, no discussion. All in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. Motion carried. Any discussion? Go ahead.
Yeah,
Commissioner Cox.
I've got something to say. I know y'all get tired of me talking about what happened a long time ago, but Bobby was Assistant Chief of Fisheries when we first met and moved to where he is now, and I consider him to be a friend, and I hate to see him go. I told him yesterday, every time you see Bob, he's got a smile on his face like he knows something you don't know. And it's, I won't try to talk a long time, but it's been and it continues to be a real pleasure to know you and to have served with you and been a friend and you know, a lot of you know my personality, and I go to Bobby and I'm griping about something or inquiring about something. He's always got a smile, and he always takes time and takes care of in a good way. You know, I'd like to tell stories, but I'm not going to take everybody's time now. But it's truly been a pleasure, and I'm sorry it's your time to go, but I'm happy for you. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Box.
Any other comments? Discussion? Okay.
I might point out that this director didn't lose a bear on the Paris Landing Bridge like our last one.
There is a bear story, though.
Yeah.
We have to plan a party too. All right, any more discussion or comments from the commission? Any comments or discussion from the public? Okay, seeing none, the motion to adjourn.
I'll move.
All right, we're adjourned.